Hey there, welcome to the first part of the flip tiles tutorial. I'm just about to show you what this game will kind of result in. So as you can see, I've got here a mind puzzle class, I've got a tile class and a result class. And how the game is supposed to work is that for a period of maybe 2 or 3 seconds, the black squares will show up. The user then will have the squares all flip back to white, and they will have to then click on the squares that were just showing up as black. So I'll show you and demo this. Okay, the squares go away. So I'm pretty sure those are the ones, and it shows me correct. Once you've got that correct, it moves to a board that is 1 square bigger. So I believe, there we go, and it shows I've got those correct again. Okay, and then 1 square bigger again. If I happen to get one wrong, it displays the entire puzzle to me, shows a sad face, keeps the same size of puzzle, and then shows me a new set of squares. Let's see if I can remember this. Oh, a little bit off. Okay, so that should give you an idea of how this is to work. So I will get us looking at kind of what our jobs are in this tutorial. Our puzzle is going to end up, like the mind puzzle world will end up basically holding on to our array of cards and making them appear on the screen, okay? But the tile class is going to be doing all the things that really have to do with a tile. So when a tile is clicked, what happens? At what point in the game is a tile clicked? What do we have to do that way? Other things that Mind Puzzle might do are they're going to actually select which tiles will be black tiles, okay, out of their array. And it's also going to keep track of the results. So it's going to keep track of how many have been correct, how many have been wrong, and it'll send proper results that way. Okay, so we're going to go through this a little bit more in depth just by starting off with 2 first parts, the tile creation and just creating the mind puzzle. So basically doing the constructor parts for each of those. Okay, so first things first, it says create an image based on the size of cells in the world. You will need to find a way to receive this info. Now what I've done is I have taken all my instructions. I'm going to have to reopen this here. It's given me troubles as per usual. Let me see here. Okay. Okay. So as you can see, I've actually copied and pasted my instructions into the constructor because then I can just fill in the blanks below. Now, this was a great way of solving problems. If you can sit there and think of what you need to do first, note that into your code, and then solve the problem afterwards with actual code. But putting in the pseudocode first helps you divide up everything that you need to do and helps you organize it for yourself to kind of code a little bit cleaner and better. So we have a couple variables already created for us. We've got private Boolean part 1, which keeps track of whether we are on part 1 or part 2 of the game. As you can see in these notes here, we've said the puzzle has 2 parts. Part 1 where the puzzle is showing until a counter makes the tile disappear, and then part 2, the player is clicking the tiles. So that's the portion where the player actually selects what tiles were being clicked, and there is no more black tiles showing at that point. So we've got a Boolean variable taking care of that. We also have another variable called black. Now this keeps track of whether the square has been selected to be black or not. Okay, so we've got that. Now the next thing we're doing here, it says create an image based on the size of the cells in the world. You will need to find a way to receive this info. And I'm not sure if on your starter file it has this, but the way you're going to receive the info is through our parameters of our constructor. Just like any other class that we've created in the past or instance of objects we've created in the past, we need to know, okay, what do we need? What do we need? What do we need to be able to create this? Okay, so think of this as a blueprint. What do we need for the tile class to be able to create itself? What kind of information do we need to get from other classes? Okay, and we need the size of the tile. Okay, so from our world class, when we call the tile class and ask for a new one to be created, we're going to have to give the size of the tile. So first things first here, let's get on with the coding. So we need to start off here. So we need to create a new image. So green foot image. So we need a green foot image size container. We're just going to call it IMG. So we'll call that container IMG. And then we're going to say new green foot image. And we are going to make it size by size. Again, we got that information from the constructor here, or the parameter of the constructor here, and we're putting that in as the new green foot image size by size. Okay, so great, that's pretty easy. Now let's see here. The next part, all tiles start as black but should have their transparency set to 0 so that their user can't see whether the tiles are black or not. Okay, so we'll get that kind of going. So to make a tile black, okay, our image, what's inside that image container, that is what's going to be the black tile. Okay, that's going to be our tile. So image.fill should make that actually black, because it always, the default color for fill and for greenfoot images is black, so that should create a black image for us. The next thing we need to do is we need to set its transparency to 0 so that the user can't see whether the tiles are black or not. Okay, you'll see how this all fits into the puzzle. Again, it's easier to see this after the fact, and once you kind of go through creating a puzzle like this, it'll make more sense on how to create more. So img.set transparency. I'm going to set that to 0, and then we are going to set our image. Okay, the current image of this object to be this image that we've just created. Okay. And it says the tiles should also have a variable that tells us whether they're black or not. Set them to false to begin, as well as whether we are dealing with the part 1 or part 2 of the game. Also set to true to begin, because of course the tile we want it at part 0. So I'm just going to move these variables down here. Not for any reason, as you know, it's not a coding thing. It was more just to put underneath this comment. And then create a counter that will hold how long until the squares flip to their clear state. Okay, so I'm going to create a new variable, and this is going to be the counter for part 1, and I'm going to call it private int P1 counter. Okay, and I am going to set that to 0 down here. Awesome. So this kind of gets our tile started off. We'll compile here. And now it says here in my notes that you can test the square by adding it to the world. Right-click to call the select method, and then reveal method. The square should now show up as black. So let's try that out. Now you can see too in your starter file that select has been done for us. Okay. Oh, but reveal hasn't. So let's do that one quickly. So all we have to do is we have to set the transparency of this to 255. So we'll say get image dot set transparency to 255. Okay, so this is just what makes our squares appear. Okay, and we'll be able to know if it's a selected tile, make it appear. Okay. Oh, you know what? We actually don't even need to call reveal. That should be done down here. So let me comment this out and let's try it for a second. And so we're gonna have to right click. Oh, needs compile. Okay, let's see. Can I create a tile? No, I have to give it information. So I'm gonna say that I think they're 45. Okay, I'm going to right click and I'm going to select. Okay, and it shows up as black. So we're happy with that. I'm just trying out that reveal class and nothing should happen there. Okay, so it should show up as black, so happy there. Okay, so the next part of this here, make sure you've got that reveal. Let's get rid of that for now. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, and the next thing we're going to do is we are going to head over to the Mind Puzzle class, okay, and go through these next steps. So I'm going to copy these and paste them into Mind Puzzle if they're not already there. They're not quite there yet, so paste that in. Great. Okay, so as you can see, we've got two different constructors. We've got Public Mind Puzzle, which is the default constructor and creates a 3x3 puzzle, and of course the main constructor. So this does all the fancy stuff for our game. So we could actually create a mind puzzles right off the bat from a size of, oh, I don't know, 12 if we wanted, but we're not going to. But we use it as something that we could possibly change the game, okay? And just we have this default constructor so that automatically we do have some sort of constructor that can work. Most good programmers have some sort of default constructor, okay? And then a more specific one here. So it says make this world size by size based on the cells given. So that's actually been given to you. So I'm going to delete that. And then it says initialize the array of squares you are about to fill. So this is where our 2D square information comes along, okay? If you don't understand 2D arrays, okay, you should probably check out some information on 2D arrays either in the notes that come beforehand in the notes of this tutorial, or you should look into something else, some sort of information on 2D arrays, because I'm not going to fully explain them here. But they're basically an array, basically arrays within an array. So let's get this initialized here. Now we've already got, well, I lied, we've got it initialized already, but we actually need to now, sorry, we've got it declared, we need to initialize it. So I can just say puzzle because that's the name of the array, okay? This is the type of information you're going to be holding here, tile information, and of course two closed square brackets saying that this is going to be a 2D array. Okay, if it were just a 1D array, regular array, it would have only one. Okay, so puzzle equals, let's do this. So equals new, of course, tile. Okay, so new, the name of what's going to be stored in the array. Okay, and we're going to say size by size. This is going to be how many boxes across and how many boxes down that we're going to have in our little puzzle game. Okay, so we've initialized that to be tile size by size. So that's now an empty array. If it was called by this default constructor, it's going to be an empty array of 3 indexes one way and 3 indexes the other. Okay. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to set up a loop for that we will fill the array with. Okay, so we're going to set that up by doing this. Okay, we're going to use 2 for loops. So for int I equals 0, I is less than size, oops, and I plus plus. Okay, so what's going to happen, I'll kind of go back to my notes just to re-explain this, okay? So what's going to happen is, okay, it's going to start going through the 0, 1, 2, 3, okay, through that for loop. But here's the catch, okay? If I go back into here, okay, and I do another for loop, int j equals 0, j is less than size, and j plus plus. Okay, so what's going to happen is it is going to go through I being equal to 0. It's then going to go into j being equal to 0. And it is going to go through this entire loop. Okay, let's go back to the notes just to look at that. It's going to go I is equal to 0, and then it's going to look at j being equal to 0, j being equal to 1, and j being equal to 2. Then it's going to bump out of that loop back to where it was in the place of the I loop. Okay, I'm just calling it the I and the j loop just to try and clarify, or the first for loop and the second for loop. So back to the first for loop, we're going at index number 1. And then we're going to go through j's 0, j's 1, and j's 2. Okay, and then again, once it's done with that second for loop, it's going to go back to the first and finish up its job there. Okay, so that's kind of why we are doing that way. I'm not wanting the tile class, I want this one. Perfect. Okay, so we've got this. Now, of course, what we're trying to do is we are trying to fill our array with squares. Now, remember, when we have an object or a class and we've created the class, that doesn't mean we've created objects and added them to anything yet. So we have to create these objects to add to into our array, into our puzzle game. Okay, so what we're going to need to do is we're going to say puzzle I and j. Now the first time it goes through this loop, it's going to go I is equal to 0, j is equal to 0, and then it's going to come here and it's going to say puzzle array index 0, 0 is equal to a new tile. Okay, so this is where that tile comes in that we've just created, that tile class that we've just created. We're going to say cell size. Okay, because we've got our cell size right up here. Okay, and it's going to create a tile based on the cell size of the pieces in our puzzle game. Okay, so we've got this, and then of course we have to add that object to our world. Okay, and I and j. Now where are we going to add it? We're kind of thinking, oh my gosh, do we have to do some sort of weird calculations here? If you look at how we've called the world superclass, okay, when we call the superclass and give it three parameters, okay, we are giving it the width and height of the world, and then this last parameter gives it the cell size. So if we want each pixel to be, or each cell that we're talking about to be 1 pixel, we'd put a 1 in there. But we're going to give it 75, and that means each cell that we're discussing or using and going by in our game, okay, each cell is going to be 75 pixels. Therefore, having a size of 3 width and 3 height means we actually have 3 times 75 pixels, okay, which will give us fast math, 150, and then not that fast math, so I guess around 225, so it's going to be 225 to start and 2 width and height, okay? So then we can just go back here and we can actually say I and j. Okay, so we can actually just say, let's add this at 0, 0. Pretty handy. Okay, so we're going to go back to this and we're going to close off this for loop. Okay, and that's our loop that we're filling our array with squares with. Okay, so we're going to go over here, and then the next instructions are to make it so that there are no correct clicks in the beginning. And to do that, we basically just have to create a variable that keeps track of this. We don't have it created yet, so private int correct. That's going to keep track of our correct clicks. So keeps track of number of correct clicks. That. Okay. And so correct equals 0. And then the last thing, select the squares you will be using as the black squares for the game by calling the select method. Okay, so we're going to go into how the select method works in a little bit, but for now, of course, we're just going to say select, and we're going to select size. So if the game is 3 by 3, we're going to have 3 black squares. If the game is 4 by 4, we're going to have 4 black squares. So we're going to just make sure we've got that compiled. Great. And we'll conclude this part of the video. Next thing we're going to be doing is figuring out how to do this little select loop to make sure that we can select squares